When it comes to information systems, security is one of those topics that are in critical concern to all stakeholders in a computer environment. In introduction, a planned protection of IT resources is one of the very most important aspects for any organization. A number of organizations have managed to protect themselves through implementing security systems. By IT resources being used and accessed in a secure manner, under all circumstances, systems are deemed to be secure. And in that case, we come to understand that computer security is a kind of way in which information assets are shielded against any form of potential risk. In that definition, we have happened to see that another new term known as risk is being introduced in our statements. And for that matter, risk could be understood as the outcome of threats interacting with vulnerabilities. When threats interact with vulnerabilities, risks occur. And what does that mean? That threats can utilize existing gaps within a computer environment. Or ideally, it means that threats can utilize existing vulnerabilities within a computer environment. But as we happen to look at this topic in depth, we are going to clearly understand what we exactly mean by threats and what we exactly mean by vulnerabilities. But before we dive into those, let us first see the main domains in information systems security. And the first domain here happens to be authentication of users. Over information systems, either independent or networked, authentication is understood as understanding who is trying to use a system. By understanding who is trying to use a system, you verify the user password and the username. So, if the username and the user password are well recognized as those that were pre-represented in the system, then authentication has taken place. But ideally, it is also about verifying or validating the username against the password that was stored before. Because information systems can exist in two modes, either single user systems or networked user systems, we have two mechanisms of authentication. We have local user authentication and network user authentication. The other point is controlling access. In controlling access, we place limitations on what users can do over a system. Yes, users access systems, they access files, they access objects, they access a number of services over a network. But there should be some form of limitations. Up to what level can a certain user access such and such a file? Can you access a file and make changes? Can you access a file and copy it? Can you do printing, or can you attach that file to a given other infrastructure? Those are the type of limitations we are talking about. So placing limitations on what a user can do on an information system, in this case we are meaning that a user may be able to log in but may not be able to set a new password. The user may not be able to install a software on that system. The user could not be able to uninstall a program. User cannot change passwords or make new configurations. And when users are dealing with files, access permissions should be met. And in that regard, users cannot do modifications without consulting system security engineers or protocols that are being configured to enable proper system security policies. The other point is securing stored data. Yes, anyone can access secured data. But how is that data configured in a way that it remains with its integrity? When I access a given kind of data, that type of data is stored in a particular format, and that format may be making the stored data encrypted, that even when someone else accesses that data through dubious means, it may be difficult for that person to interpret the files in a particular folder. So encryption is a way of securing stored data. There are many forms of encryption, but at this moment, let us end at encryption. We have what we call private key and public key encryption mechanisms, but for purposes of basic understanding, we should contain that securing stored data is all about encrypting that information, making it difficult for the unauthorized user to interpret that information. Our next point is securing data transmission. When data is moving from one place to another over a network, some people may be there to misuse that kind of information. So what happens when data is being transmitted from one point to another? There must be a particular kind of safeguarding mechanism. So through safeguarding the data that is transmitted over internet or intranet, one can use protocols like SSL. SSL is used in web interfaces when we are dealing with the www. And normally, I know most of you have seen http / 2 / then www.this.com. What does that mean? HTTPS means hypertext transfer protocol secure, rather than using HTTP hypertext transfer protocol. So that form of SSL is exhibiting for us a mechanism of accessing data over the internet when it is well protected. Our last point is managing security. What does it mean to manage? Managing basically is about strategizing methodological ways or strategizing ways that can mitigate security breaches. And in this format, we establish security policies within computer systems. By configuring security policies, so that computers or systems can be used in a very unified format. But as we proceed, we have various users with different interests, and those interests can be predicted through auditing computer security infrastructure. We recheck the policies and see whether users are still in compliance with the policies that are being configured on the computer or IT infrastructure. Before we go into other discussions, let us have a short break and again return. Thank you. Welcome back. In the interest of learning well about what is security, we are once again going to see other definitions about network security. The first one is network security is the defense provided to a computer network and its resources against unauthorized user modifications, destruction, or disclosure. Network security considers the internal environment within which the system operates. We don't go out of the boundary of a network if we are to provide proper security about it. Network security involves lying defensive measures that protect the underlying network infrastructure and its resources from any form of risk. Here, the risks we are meaning include unauthorized access, misuse, malfunction, modification, destruction, and improper disclosure. All the above create a secure environment for information systems. Information system users, information systems programs to safely perform their permitted functions. In advanced, though in simple advanced terms, network security is about safeguarding of information and information systems against unauthorized access or modification of information, whether in storage, processing, or transit, and against denial of service or unauthorized access, modification, malfunction, destruction, or improper disclosure. Having seen this, let us see if we can understand the areas of computer security. The areas of computer security include information security, which refers to the process and the methodology designed and implemented to protect our electronic data or any form of confidential or private sensitive information or data from unauthorized use, access, misuse, disclosure, modification, or disruption. The other component or the other area of computer security includes cybersecurity. Now, when you hear cybersecurity, it means we are protecting the information infrastructure, its operating system, the network, together with its data against digital attack. All these happen with the assistance of internet resource. Cybersecurity happens on infrastructures that are enabled with the internet services. These attacks aim at accessing, changing, or destroying sensitive information, extorting money from users, or interrupting normal business processes. Like, for example, an exam is taking place and people use internet to distract people from the successful completion of an exam that is online. Another computer security area is cyber security, which is also about protection of data and systems in a network that is interconnected to internet. From the well understanding of those areas, let us now have a look at the level of security measures. Security measures include the physical measures, the human measures, operating system measures, and network measures. What are physical measures? Deploying security guards, deploying padlocks, roofing the infrastructure properly, providing security cameras, lighting systems, lightening, redirectors, and proper lighting infrastructure. Then what about the human measure? The human security measure is looking at only those that are appropriate or those that are supposed to use and access the system. What about operating system measure? It's about the system protecting itself from denial or accidental security breaches or intended security breaches. Normally we call them denial of service attack. And lastly is network security measure. Under network security measure, we all know that however much computers are networked, they use particular channels in wireless or physical form to transmit messages from one place to another. So, in that case, channels should not be interrupted in any form, because the interruption of communication channels could constitute a remote destruction of network services, which of course that is also part of denial of service. In the sense of understanding that, we shall have a look at the CIA triangle, which is known as the integrity, confidentiality, and the availability triangle in security undertaking. What is confidentiality? At this point, it's about ensuring that the information is accessible to only those that are authorized. As long as you can log in, provide a correct password, then you are an authentic user. So, unauthorized users can always use chances to steal passwords and access information. But authentication enforces provision of correct IDs, provision of correct passwords and the usernames, so that one can correctly use the intended system. What about integrity? Integrity is all about safeguarding information from being modified by unauthorized people. It ensures that the protected data is correct and trustworthy. And availability, as the name suggests, it's about ensuring that authorized people have access to the information when and always when they need that information. In case of any challenge happening to that information, there should be particular backups done to safeguard any form of disruption or data loss. Thank you for listening. Have a short break. Welcome back. And now let us look at the forms of threats. Remember I told you that threats utilize vulnerabilities. So that means that people determine particular gaps in a system that they can use system trespasses and disturb system performance, steal data, and etc. So those people exist in a number of ways. Some of them are known as thieves. Others are interpreted as hackers. They guess people's passwords and they hack through to access systems resources. We have terrorists. We have ignorant users, unauthorized users, unauthenticated persons are all examples of threats. However, besides people, we can also have other things that can be interpreted as threats, like miscellaneous codes, so-called viruses, fire, smoke, excessive temperature, lightning, thunder, earthquake, bombs, floods, water in form of juice and soda being poured into computers, systems moisturizing, and other natural calamities. All those provide us examples of threats. Now, let us now go to vulnerabilities. The forms of vulnerabilities include outdated antivirus, outdated firewalls, outdated security systems, including security softwares and security hardwares, improper human resourcing. Improper human resourcing here we are meaning hiring security personnel, information security personnel that are not qualified. They can also act as vulnerabilities. Improper shelters, absence of quality infrastructure, lack of IT security programs. That we are meaning lack of antiviruses, lack of employee training, lack of security audits, etc. are all examples of vulnerabilities. That all justifies that whenever threats identify vulnerabilities, they use them as gaps to enable them access when they are not authorized. And this means that when threats interact or intersect with gaps or vulnerabilities, risks happen to show. Like, for example, sharing confidential information, unauthorized use, you will see viruses. All those are risks. Data loss is a risk. Hardware theft and vandalism because you've not provided proper physical security or proper shelter. System penetration because there is no antivirus. Denial of service and system failure. All those are outcomes of vulnerabilities interacting with threats. So a risk is a composition of threats and vulnerabilities. Now, how do we manage risks? By understanding risk management, we need to know that computer security risk is any event that could cause loss, damage of computer hardware, software, data or information. After having understood that, then we go to what we call risk management. What is managing risk? Because risk is an event that will take place after threats identifying gaps to cause loss or damage of computer hardware or computer software or data information. Therefore, computer security risk management involves a structured approach or an organized mechanism of managing uncertainties through assessing risks. What is to assess a risk? It is to understand the potential impact a risk can cause to your system. After having understood how dangerous risks are, then you can be able to mitigate them or manage them. But before we go to what we understand as risk assessment, which is about developing strategies to manage risks and make sure risks don't occur through the use of IT and administrative resources. In case any illegal action occurs on a computer system, then we call that as computer crime. Any illegal act involving a computer is generally referred as computer crime. So, what are the steps in risk management? Risk management involves planning computer security in a very understood mechanism regarding a particular kind of risk. For you to manage risks, you must have an organized method established to control uncertainties through assessing a given kind of risk. So the processes involved or the steps involved in managing risks are: 1. Identifying, locating areas of potential risk, locating areas relating to a particular domain that involves a risk. The other issue is planning. After identifying risk in a selected area, then you go into what we call planning recommended steps that will enable you run through the risk mitigation process. In planning, you forecast the risk management processes by putting reminders on certain issues, for example, updating antivirus, buying new licenses, and etc. Plus, scheduling meetings for better implementation of those plans. Then there is an issue relating to mapping. It's about understanding the scope within which you are going to work on the process of risk management. It enables you identify or determine the identity and objectives of particular stakeholders you're working with, such that you can find a particular team to work with to mitigate particular risks. If the risk is relating to electric shock or electric fire outbreak, then you need to work with a particular team relating to electrical technology to enable you identify mechanisms of protecting your systems from being affected by electricity. Then defining a framework. A framework is like a method under which activities are going to be undertaken. Then developing an analysis of risks involved in a particular process or in a particular framework. Then finally, mitigation of risks, which means using available technologies, human resources and organization resources to avoid the occurrence of any kind of computer obstacle. Now, let us have a look at potential risk treatments. Once you have identified risks and assessed all techniques to manage risks, then it is easy for you to eliminate, mitigate, which is reducing, accept, which is retention, or transfer the risk by subjecting it to third parties, insurance companies, to enable you at least manage particular kind of risks with little stress. Now, in many ways, computer security requires some technical understanding of terms that will lead you to a stronger security protocol. And the first term would be firewall. Firewall is into two forms. There is hardware firewall and software firewall. But for now, let us look at software firewall. It is a software installed on computer network infrastructure so that it can control and manage the traffic that comes in and goes out of your network, such that it can filter out unwanted traffic that runs into your network that would ideally later on cause challenges for hackers to penetrate and disturb your system. Another term is computer virus. A virus is a program developed to disorganize or to disturb other programs installed on your computer. So that virus will make sure it disorganizes the correct performance of applications and system software. So a virus is a program that copies itself into other programs and spread through multiple computers. These viruses are designed to affect and disturb computers negatively. Viruses are activated in three basic ways. Once it is on your computer, it can open itself and infect your files. So when you open an infected file, then the virus is activated. Or that virus can go and infect in programs. And when you run those infected programs, then you have activated a virus. Or when you insert disks that are infected with viruses, when you run them in your computer, you have ignited a virus on your system. Computer viruses are categorized into a number of forms. Boot sector, those are viruses that execute when the computer is starting. File viruses, these are viruses that attach themselves on program files like Microsoft Word, Excel, Access, and they load into memory when infected and the programs are disturbed. Then microvirus. These ones, they use micro language of application like word processor and spreadsheets to hide the virus codes. Let us look at the major types of viruses. We have the logic bomb, the time bomb, the worm, the Trojan horse, and others. When you happen to look at these types of viruses, you will happen to understand that as those types of viruses, as their names suggest, it is exactly how they behave. For example, time bomb. It is a kind of logic bomb that activates in a particular date. Then a worm, it copies itself repeatedly into disk drives, into memory, disk space that is remaining on the computer until the computer stops working. Then logic bomb, It's a virus that activates when it detects a certain condition, e.g., deleting of some files. You click open, it instead shows delete. When you click save, it instead shows send to recycle bin. Such kind of system disturbances. So in that case, the precautions against viruses include ensuring that the emails you open are only the trusted mails. Ensure that you install antivirus. Never start a computer with installed flash disks or floppy drives or any other form of drive that you are not certain of. Scan extensively. Set security levels. Back up your information such that you don't be distracted by viruses in any form. And when all that is done, you are free now to see the characteristics of a secure kind of information. Characteristics of secure information is measured in a number of ways, but of course, because we've covered the confidentiality, integrity, and accessibility triangle, let us use that to understand the characteristics of secure information. Confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Those ones, we discussed them before. Then there is privacy, which is just simple terms that we've been using on a daily basis. Identification, authentication. But then authorization, maybe since we have not yet seen about it. Authorization provides assurance that the user has been specifically and explicitly authorized by the proper authority to access, update, and delete the content of an information asset. What about authentication? It occurs when a control provides proof that the user possesses the identity that he or she claims. And then accountability is the characteristic of controls provided to ensure that every activity undertaken can be attributed to a named person or an automated process. There's nothing can take place in a mysterious way. Once things happen in a mysterious way, then you cannot provide accountability on the occurrence of system services and operations. Normally, security is not 100%. It is just at a particular level. But when incidents occur and losses happen, then we should prepare recovery strategies. How do you recover from system failure? You must have at least a number of parameters planned and put in place to make sure that you can continue working after failure. The system can continue working and recover from failure. You must prepare incident response plans that in case an incident occurs, how have you planned to respond to that incident? There is an attack. Which plans have you put? Which team do you have to respond to such attacks? To respond to such a type of virus attack? To respond to such a type of effect, depending on how it has occurred. Continuity. It is a process and procedures organizations put in place to ensure that essential functions can continue during or after disaster. We are running an exam and then the system fails. Will all students say we didn't complete the exam because the system failed? No. The technical committee should have put and planned strategies and proper ways that even when we are running an exam online and the system fails, the following mechanisms can enable us recover and continue with working online and complete the exam even when the system at one time failed. That is why a business continuity plan seeks to prevent interruptions of critical system services and to re-establish full functioning and a swift, smooth, possible infrastructure mechanism possible. As we can see, business continuity is about finding ways that can enable businesses not to be disrupted even after certain attacks. So because we saw this already, we may not waste time about business continuity planning, but in any given IT infrastructure, one should have what we call contingency plans. That in case there is this challenge, this is how we overcome it to continue with normal business. In case there is a virus attack, this is what we do. In case there is denial of access, we have other mechanisms we can forego this. In case of system failure, in case of data loss, we have backups. All those are continuity plans. We can now have a look at IT security audit. Auditing in information systems is intended to identify gaps that are maybe not easily detected. An information security audit will only occur when the technology team conducts an organizational review to ensure that the correct and most updated process and infrastructure are being applied. When you're running an audit, you are considering a number of issues that may not be easily predicted in system security. And this process includes a series of tests to guarantee that there are no security gaps within the computer environment. And when they are there, they can easily be addressed and followed up to see whether they are at stable and full function. The other concept we wish to look at is ethics. Once one establishes rules that govern computer ethics, once one establishes the rules that govern computer usage, and those rules are followed correctly, then computer ethics prevails or is seen or is the outcome. But when rules are not followed, the rules that govern computer usage, then the word ethics ceases to have meaning under computer environment or in the computer environment. So ethics refers to the rules that govern computer usage. The 10 commandments of computer ethics. Thou shalt not use a computer to harm others. You organize a computer to work as a time bomb because you want to kill other people. It's not recommended. Those are not good computer ethics. Thou shalt not interact with other people's work. If your computer is not yours, if you're not allowed to access, why do you access what doesn't belong to you? It's not ethical. Thou shalt not snoop around in other people's files, which means obtaining other people's non-public files regarding their personal lifestyle information. Among other commandments of computer ethics include thou shalt not use computers to steal. Thou shalt not use computers to bear false evidence. Thou shalt not use or copy other people's information, or thou shalt not use pirated softwares or softwares that are not paid for, which is under copyright, among others. Crime. The misuse of computers and peripherals in a way that can cause destruction or breakdown of hardware or software is known as crime. Crime can exist in a number of ways. Stealing software, which is known as software piracy. Hacking and electronic trespass is another computer crime. Hardware and software sabotage is also a computer crime. But after having seen the types or the different kinds of computer crime, another word that can easily confuse learners is computer abuse. Abuse is actually the wrongful use of computer plus its peripherals. Peripherals are devices that are attached to the computer to be able to fetch data in and out of the computer. For example, keyboards, mouse, monitor, speakers, and etc. Those are the examples of peripherals. So computer abuse includes moonlighting, surfing during company time, playing games, all that is abuse. Wrongful shutdown, leaving a computer on for long hours, hitting a computer, spreading viruses intentionally, and downloading infected files is also characterized as computer abuse. And downloading infected files is also understood as computer abuse. About what we have learned, I am very glad that you have managed to complete the listening, and you can have time to read through the handouts provided to make sure that you can at least understand better from the discussion provided in this video. Thank you.